everyone. My name is Rosalie Samuels. I'm honored to be here today on what is already proving to be a great roster of women and non-binary speakers. Quick background on me. I'm just over a year into working in Web3 and currently lead growth marketing at Consensus. Prior to that, I helped build out the growth team at Venmo and worked in strategy and operations at DoorDash. So a friend of mine recently gave me a call and was, considering making a career move from Web2 to Web3 and asked me about that transition. And, I was reflecting on that. And when you switch jobs in Web2, you may have to learn a new industry, like going from fintech to health tech. Pretty standard. But when you switch jobs into Web3, not only are you learning a new industry, you're building a new industry, for one. Two, you're learning a new language, between terminology and acronyms and technical jargon. Like, it's no joke. I took a couple years of Mandarin in college, and this is like up there with learning a new language. And three, you're learning an entirely new culture that is forming around this new wave of technology. Needless to say, there's a steep learning curve as you make that transition. And so today, with kind of 1 year behind me in the space, I'd love to drill down on a few learnings regarding kind of Web2 growth principles that apply in Web3 and where growth principles start to kind of diverge. So let's start by touching on just two growth principles that are kind of equally vital in Web3. So at its core, growth marketing is using experimentation to drive users through the funnel: acquisition, engagement, and retention. The most effective tactics I've seen in my career are those that meet users where they are, provide clear education, and present, a simple way to take action. So I have two examples here. Here's one from my time at Venmo, and if you're not familiar with Venmo, it's kind of a popular payments app in the United States specifically. If we noticed that a user was paying a stranger, we would trigger kind of an in-app kind of modal in the app that would essentially introduce something we called payment protection, which, would help a user if, the payment went awry. There was simply kind of not a more relevant moment to introduce that modal and to educate users on that feature and drive adoption of that feature. It was tailor-made for that particular use case. Compare that to receiving a try out purchase protection marketing email totally out of the blue. Then you're showing up like this guy who's just meeting users at the wrong place, the wrong time. So now an example from MetaMask, a more recent example from my current role. We found that it's common for users to conduct research on how a token is trending, sites like maybe CoinGecko or EtherScan when, they're considering buying it. And since we've partnered with sites like those to essentially kind of sponsor a buy CTA on those those high intent web pages, so that, if the research inspires a user to take action, they're just one click away from being able to kind of jump right into our product and do so if they choose. The conversion rate of that compared to a banner ad, it's night and day. So there's no secret sauce here. It's really just about showing up in a contextually relevant way. It shouldn't even feel like marketing. It should feel like actually natural and helpful to a user. And that's what ultimately will deliver results. So regardless of Web2 or Web3, your most effective growth strategies will come from gaining a deep understanding of your customers. DoorDash put this into practice like no other. And if you're not familiar with DoorDash, it's like Deliveroo and Uber Eats. It's like a food delivery app. And they'd have all their employees actually have a quota to be the dasher, to be the person that delivered food. So we had to set our delivery radius, get to the restaurant in time to find parking, find a service entrance if there was one, and ultimately deliver that food to our customers while it was still hot and intact. The best growth ideas came from getting out from behind our laptops and actually stepping into the shoes of our dashers. And we built growth strategies around that. At MetaMask, we're building our tune-in muscle, upping our communication with key opinion leaders and users. Really super simple example here, but we just built a new web landing page and ran some basic user testing on it. And let me tell you, by speaking to 5 users and hearing their feedback on the page, not only did we generate a 6-month experimentation roadmap to essentially improve conversion rate on that page. But we gained such a deeper appreciation for those who would be landing on that and have questions about kind of next steps and what they need to do to ultimately convert and on ramp to crypto. So with all the day-to-day responsibilities of the job, I will say it's easy to drift away from this principle. But if you do, it can be a silent killer. It might be the reason behind kind of plateaus you're seeing in your business metrics. So we just touched on kind of two foundational pillars of growth that remain kind of equally vital in Web2 and Web3. So what principles have kind of outsized impact in Web3? So to put it bluntly, there are constraints in growth marketing for Web3 that there aren't in Web2. Take user data collection. That's an easy one. At Venmo, with the snap of a finger, we could easily build just about any audience segment that you could think of, down to whether someone was like a Virgo and used a hamburger emoji in their last payment note, like hyper specific. And we relied heavily on that data to personalize and optimize all of our marketing touch points. As we know, there's far more privacy constraints in Web3. We don't collect personal data from users in the same capacity, no names, no email addresses, the list goes on. But these types of constraints have really sharpened our muscle around first principles thinking, breaking down traditional growth primitives like segmentation and attribution into their fundamental elements and rethinking and reassembling new solutions from the ground up. The best growth hires I've come across kind of embrace this challenge and, love not just simply plugging and chugging the same growth playbook that they've used at other companies. Now, as a growth team at MetaMask, we're focused on acquisition of new users and keeping our existing users engaged. Now, our existing users are seasoned crypto folks like many folks in this room. So as a growth team, we need to be well-versed on all the latest trends on crypto, Twitter, meme coins, ecosystem news, et cetera, to identify the right next wave of growth to jump on. This audience might have kind of a mild allergy to traditional marketing. So pressure's on to kind of come up with growth tactics that are authentic and, not tone deaf and, don't ruin the vibes. So, stepping into the mindset of this audience is already kind of no small task. But then as growth marketers, we need to kind of compartmentalize that, put that aside and jump into the mindset of our second audience, which is the millions of users who may have a seed of interest in Web3, but may have hesitations and uncertainty. And it's our job to kind of determine the right growth tactics to ultimately help them navigate as they take kind of their first steps from sign up to on-ramp. So let's actually just take a quick moment to actually appreciate that balancing act. That's two vastly different audience mindsets of core segments that make up our growth strategy. I'd go out on a limb and say that there's not a more challenging audience dichotomy for a growth team across any industry. They are vastly different. So with that, today we've touched on what in the growth discipline does and doesn't translate from corporate environments into Web3. And I think the challenges are what make this, in my opinion, the most exciting industry to be a growth marketer. Growth in Web3 isn't about following a template. It's about redefining what growth means in kind of this next wave of tech. And so I think with that, I'll wrap it up with a quick note of appreciation for the SheFi team and community. You all have created such a comfortable landing pad for those of us entering the industry. And I think I can speak for many of us in this room when I say, you're the ultimate education on-ramp. So big thank you and looking forward to meeting many other folks in this room. Thank you.